I missed parts of yesterday because we are at the same time filming a documentary. So I was doing some interviews, and so I was like, I came and then we went and then came back.
Yeah, I think I saw you.
Yeah. Now I'm here for the morning, so yeah, it's a bit.
And what's the documentary about?
It's about Eurovision. Excuse me, just a minute. Já tens este livro teu? Já. It's about the Eurovision.
Especially this one here? Or?
Yes, it's kind of like about now, more than something historical. It's a short documentary, but it's united by music, divided by meaning. That's the provisional title.
Yeah, I think that's a good one actually.
But it's kind of like trying to show the different meanings that people, give to the experience, to the show, things like that. So, yeah.
So you're interviewing artists or fans or?
A mix.
A mix, okay.
A mix. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
But, yesterday was good. We interviewed the head of the delegation of the Ukraine, and later today Martin Green. So that will be the big boss.
Wow.
It's a good one. And we've managed to have like a few artists in the turquoise carpet to say, snippets. But there's still 3 more days to go kind of filming. So it's just a little bit intense.
So it's a busy week for you, intense week.
Yeah. So, but thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking me or for inviting me.
So these things happen. No
we call it Vorführeffekt in German.
Okay.
I don't know the English term for it, but it's exactly a word for that. What's happening right now?
So you teach?
Yeah, I'm working at the Department of Popular Music. So I'm a pop musicologist. But I have a background in film and media studies. Yeah.
Okay. We're live again.
Hey! Check. So, let's try this again.
We still have to establish a connection with Australia.
Okay. You let me know when Australia is in.
Well, yes.
What was that?
Alright, so we have to ask Oscar to log in again. So someone has to contact Oscar to.
Do you have the contact? I can send him a email right now.
Or we can go back to starting shortly.
Oscar.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Oscar.
Eintreten lassen. There you go.
The conference stream will be edited.
Oscar, are you there?
Yes.
Yay!
Hello.
Hey! Good afternoon, Australia.
Good afternoon. I think your computer had a big after party yesterday.
Indeed. All right, let's get started. But did you get the part where I talked about Irvin's story and how he initially got some criticism about doing research on Eurovision?
No, it's about when the computer died, probably.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to retell the complete story.
It's okay.
Read Irvin's dissertation there, or our publication actually that we recently did about public value, because it's actually what I want to start with. The other roundtables today, they will also talk about public value of Eurovision, right? 70 years of public value, 70 years of Eurovision, right? And we'll talk about whether there's still something called United by Music in the third roundtable. But what we're going to talk about now is actually doing research on the public value of Eurovision and actually the public value of that research itself. So I talked about Irvin's research, but I'm going to introduce my guests by starting to talk about the research that they did. So let's start with Magdalena Firmkrantz. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Yes. And then let's start, because I'll give you this microphone. There we go. Maybe it's first nice as a round of introduction for the people who actually didn't check our website or read your short summary of your CV, right? What has the research been on that you've been doing on Eurovision? And in a brief answer to that, did you experience the same criticism that Irvin had?
Yeah, so I'm Magdalena Fürnkans. I'm working at the Department of Popular Music here at this university, and I have a background in film and media studies, and I think this leads me to the topic of Eurovision. After the victory of Conchita Wurst, me and a colleague of mine, Ursula Hemetek, who's a ethnomusicologist, decided to invite Conchita to our university for a talk. Mm-hmm. The management asked for 20,000 euros, and we said, "Oh no, we can't afford that." Obviously, it's a university. So, but then we decided to organize a little conference on the topic of sexual identities and nationalities on the Eurovision stage with invited papers. So it was a one-day conference only, happening on the 8th March March the 8th in 2016. So a symbolic date as well. And after that, we decided to publish a small edited volume with the same title. Performing Sexual Identities, Nationalities on the Eurovision stage, with 4 peer-reviewed papers, who unites different angles and aspects on national identity, the identities of ethnic minorities, such as the Sami, for example, and queer performances on the Eurovision stage. Also, one of our articles also include a very feminist stance on Conchita Wurst and the performance of Conchita Wurst. So that was the starting point.
Because it's not working. So we can just talk, we can just hear it.
All right, sure. And after that, I also wrote a small journalistic piece for Skok, an Austrian journal on pop culture, on the aesthetics of Conchita Wurst, connecting it to Susan Sontag's Notes on Camp with the title Notes on Wurst.
Notes on Wurst.
So I mean that was the starting point, and the head of our university, I would say, describes herself as a feminist, and she always supports events that are connected, for example, with queer studies, or she tries to support the research on ethnic minorities, for example. So we got a good funding for the conference. And I think in popular music studies, it is also that there are so many people with different research backgrounds. For instance, I'm not a musicologist. So the people I met on conferences and other events, for example, were actually very enthusiastic about me doing research on the Eurovision Song Contest, as far as they know or have known the event.
And you're also saying in the volume you edited, right, that the victory of Conchita Wurst, other than having an effect on the LGBT community and discussion in Austria, it kind of was a boost for researchers, right, in a way. But what was it like before that?
Well, I think it wasn't that important, actually, because we didn't have so many people who won, artists winning the song contest. I mean, there was Udo Jürgens with Merci Chérie. And then, to say it in a polite way, the Austrian artists haven't been that successful, actually, for a few decades.
But I think we can maybe then establish that that maybe some big events might draw a lot of attention, and then it does trigger, let's say, a lot of interest for research. But I'm also feeling that there might be researchers out there that are already doing research, but they simply don't know how to find each other. And you actually saying, I'm going to do a conference, I'm going to do a volume edited, bring in your publications, that brings these people together, right? But Conchita was kind of the trigger.
Yeah, it was. Conchita, director of Conchita was kind of the trigger. But I mean, after that, in Austrian popular music studies, nothing much happened actually.
Yeah.
We had the edited volume. We got good feedback actually.
Yeah.
But that's it. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to what's happening next actually.
Okay.
So in the near future.
We'll see. Okay, let me link that to you, Oscar. So far, Australia hasn't won, but obviously we had a big moment because Australia has always been fun and very much interested in the Eurovision Song Contest, and then we had the previous anniversary where Australia participated for the first time. That must have drawn some attention. But would you say that for your research and at your university, an event like Conchita Wurst winning, but let's say the equivalent, also happened in your case and it sort of drew attention to your research?
Well, first of all, yes, we did not win, but just following from last night, if we create a Australia altogether, we have to share some winners there. And indeed, it had quite a bit of impact actually after Conchita's worst win in Austria. They came and actually visited Australia a few times at the Sydney Mardi Gras overall. But if you ask about probably just looking at my research overall, obviously. Eurovision is really my passion research. It's a hobby research where I do not, get any really funding to do that type of research. So it's on my own time. But my broader research is on LGBTQI plus hospitality, tourism, and events. And I'm kind of looking at how tourism and major events such as Eurovision, in this sense, kind of shape experiences, the belonging, representation, and community building amongst LGBTQI plus communities. In terms of Eurovision being not necessarily an important topic to research, I never came across that. I think we had this conversation just last week, three of us, right, about having a bit of freedom of doing research on what we want, as long as we kind of maintain that methodological rigor and also engagement with various theories. Is there a follow-up question?
Yeah, well, actually, let me link that to that. I think it's the perfect opening for my next question, because you're saying, when I proposed my research, whether that was hobby or not, or a guilty pleasure, and I think you called it sort of, it's in the margins of academic research, Eurovision, right? But no one actually told you not to do so. It was unlike Irvin encountered people saying, at this university, this topic, no way, right? You do get a lot of space to work on that. But you're also saying there might be some other forces that stop you from doing research on Eurovision, right? It's the money. Or what?
Absolutely. Like, look, I did my PhD in mid-2010s. Well, early actually, 2010s I started. And as I mentioned, my topic was, while it was not on Eurovision, it was on LGBTQI plus tourism. And I got some weird looks into actually questioning the very fact that I could do PhD in tourism on that topic. But I think times have progressed, and as Eurovision, once upon a time, was quite conservative back in the day, I think that same thing happened to academia, and we kind of became a bit more liberated in terms of what we research. I'm probably quite fortunate that I'm in a business school, and as long as it ties up with one of the areas that I teach in particular, it kind of doesn't really matter what I do. However, as I said, this is a hobby research at the moment, or kind of this passion project, because if at some point someone decides that my research has to bring in some money meaning funding, competitive funding and all of that, and I didn't have that time for doing research that I like, perhaps my research on Eurovision Song Contest by not explicitly being told that I can't do that type of research. It would just naturally die off because I wouldn't have time to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Then back to Lena, actually, because I remember in a discussion we had the other day where you said, well, maybe we got complete freedom to work on a topic like Eurovision. Maybe it's about the money, but you also said you run the risk of being associated with one particular topic. And Irvin, I don't want to scare you, but it probably means that you can't do anything else than Eurovision research, any completely different topic. Whereas you're in the department of not business, but popular music, right? Let's say the humanities as well. But what did you mean with that comment, actually? So you're being stuck with one particular topic, and there's a risk to that as well.
Yeah, but I think it's a disadvantage of modern neoliberal academia and the university system.
Yeah.
So you can't concentrate on one topic anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
So me, for example, I'm doing jazz research, performativity, queer music scenes located in and around Vienna. You know what I mean? I'm also digging into the archives of Austropop, for example. On that, I sometimes get some negative feedback, especially from people who are music historians, musicologists who are researching the history of music.
Would you have an example of that feedback, that negative feedback?
I guess it's the kind of music that's not classical music, doesn't have that much importance or significance for Austria as the most important country for classical music, for instance. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that the people that are saying that are now kind of satisfied that at least the theme song this year is filled with orchestra and classical music? Or will they still say, no, Eurovision is Eurovision, it doesn't have anything to do with classical music then?
I think it's a good example of the distinction when it comes to Eurovision.
Yeah.
So because it's happening here in Vienna, there's classical music in the theme song. It has to be, because we're in Vienna. So that might show that it's not the event that all of my university or the music historians would do research on. But of course we're in Vienna, so there has to be classical music in it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is actually, we've been talking now about, let's say, encountering criticism, being able actually to do your research. I do want to go back, Oscar, actually to you and your comment about it being a hobby. And similar to what Magdalena said in the past, it's sort of in the margins of academia, right? What would it take actually to let people not do research on Eurovision as a guilty pleasure and in the margins of their research, right? Really a seriously established field in academia. What would it take, you think?
Oh, it's a very good and very difficult question. I mean, there's so much research done on Eurovision, so I wouldn't say that it's absolutely in the margins, but as someone who is within events management space as well, and I do teach event operations management to my student, I absolutely see value in researching Eurovision as a phenomenon. For example, at things such as volunteer management, right? So I'm sure most of the people in the class in the audience there today attended the our book launch yesterday. We just released our book on Eurovision impacts on leisure tourism in events, and we did have some chapters there on volunteer tourism, for example, the impacts on destination management, and so on and so forth. So I guess for it to be brought to the next level and using Eurovision as a context, probably some sort of more funding would be probably required from whether EBU itself, if they want to find out about the impacts it has on host nations and all of that, perhaps by host cities themselves, and so on and so forth. I don't see the reason why Eurovision cannot become kind of a context case study for other studies, the same way, for example, Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games are, because it has all of these elements of event management, and even more so because it has involvement of such a broad audiences as well. It's international. There's also obviously the media studies involved, the music studies. It's so multifaceted that I think it's probably more funding interest in it. And perhaps also our way of showing how, because with our research, in particular in Australia, we have to demonstrate the public value, something that we are talking about as well, and perhaps translating those research findings in a much better way. The reason why it's a hobby research, and the reason why we can't run larger studies, is purely because we are just doing it by ourselves. Like, I've never received any of the funding for the research that I do in terms of Eurovision, and obviously I do other kinds of studies, yes, LGBTQI plus studies, but something completely unrelated. I also do Antarctic tourism, right? Having gone to Antarctica multiple times as well, and that attracts a lot of funding because there's public interest in all of that. I don't know, perhaps we need Eurovision in Antarctica, and then we'll get some more money.
We'll see. They would first have to become a member of the EBU, right? So let's see. Just thinking about a bunch of penguins now actually joining. Okay. But let me link that to an example I have for you, Oscar, because in a way I think what we're saying is maybe there's public value for the university and research that is done there if the public and the bigger audience, and let's say the non-academic audience, can see the value of it, right? This is not necessarily my opinion, but this is how it goes. People might say, I'm a taxpayer and I want to see where the money goes and how the money flows. And I want to give you an example, Oscar, something that really happened to me a couple of years ago when the Netherlands won, and it was between Maastricht and Rotterdam, and both cities actually handed in a bid book to convince the EBU that they would be had to be the host city, right? I got a phone call from someone who was preparing the bid book, and he said, I need your help a little bit because I need you to tell me, how does the Eurovision fan group that comes to the city, how do they organize themselves? And in particularly, and don't get me wrong, I'm a straight person, how does the LGBT community in terms of tourism organize themselves? And my first response was, they do very well. Thank you kindly. Obviously. But it was kind of a cute question because I thought he was just looking for ways of seeing what do they need. And then I said, well, just make sure that at the after parties, you do play Eurovision music. We've seen it in the past that people walk away as fans if there is no Eurovision music at the after parties. But that was actually my only recommendation. And Oscar, I wish we would have known each other back then, because otherwise I would probably have referred him to you. And considering the amount of money that goes in a bid book, I could have easily seen that you, giving a couple of advices based on your research, you would have made a lot of money there. So in terms of doing research and you using that research to advise someone, a non-academic person, on LGBT tourism related to Eurovision, that could have been very useful, right? But let me just ask you the question then, what would you have told this guy?
Just before I go ahead and answer your question, I also think something that came into my mind as you were talking about it, also about the public value of Eurovision and the reason why perhaps there's not as much interest in this type of research. I think because a lot of people kind of have blinkers on, and they see Eurovision as this, some people don't even know that there's two semifinals before the final. They just see it as this one static event that happens without actually thinking how much actually comes into it. And one of those examples is something that you raised, this one very small, I would say, detail. Oh, I probably shouldn't be saying small, the Queens will be angry at me. But I mean, this is one of those topics, that you would really want to research and understand. So obviously, we know that LGBTQ plus community is enmeshed with the Eurovision community, and it probably wouldn't be able to imagine Eurovision without the queer fan support, right? And as you say, LGBT groups tend to organize themselves through kind of a mix of formal and informal social communities, activist spaces, and so on and so forth. One of the things I would suggest, obviously, there are also well-established fan groups such as OGAE. Obviously, while it's not explicitly LGBTQI+, there's many of the members surely are, and they would have a lot of insight on it. So actually consulting those fans as well and asking them what you want, right? But also thinking about that Eurovision is both very local, right? So where the host city is. So actually working with the nightclubs, wherever spaces, you know, if you have the pre-parties or watch parties, wherever, actually working with those stakeholders there, showing the value of Eurovision is bringing to the city and looking for those for those cooperations. And I mean, it happened previously, you know, like in Malmö, the integrated local queer venues into Eurovision programming quite well. Liverpool had a strong collaboration there as well between the Eurovision organizers and LGBTQI+ kind of cultural institutions there. Even in Tel Aviv, you know, they advertised and promoted themselves as explicitly both, you know, a Eurovision as well as LGBTQI+ friendly tourism destination. So there's lots of kind of those opportunities, I think, for host cities to get involved with the groups.
Yeah. One more follow-up question about that, and then I'll actually talk to you, Magdalena, about topics that students cannot do research on. But actually, Jack is back, so you know, Oscar. We were just talking about your book, but actually in the book, I think the last part, the two of you identified that even though there is a lot of research going on, there is sort of a gap in terms of doing research on Eurovision tourism, maybe, right? And that's why you actually decided to have this book, right? And maybe just briefly, what should there be more? And I'm doing this a little bit on purpose, right? Because I told the students in the audience, think about topics for your bachelor thesis or your master's thesis or your PhD, whatever. So actually they might ask you to be their supervisor, who knows? Any topics that you think would fill the gap in the future?
Definitely more. We want more. If they're economists, the economic impacts on destinations post Eurovision Song Contest in particular. I know that there are all these figures that come out from EBU or other organizations, but obviously it's not enough. A lot around volunteer tourism, probably, and fandom and tourism. Also in leisure space, how we actually consume the event during that week. For example, people who are not necessarily in a host city, but watching from their own respective countries, how they communicate, how they engage with Eurovision. For example, even in Australia, right? Like, there's quite a bit of research, actually. There's very few of us who do research on Eurovision, but we are very active. There's such a passionate group of people. Like, we had to wake up at 3 o'clock, so 3 o'clock in the morning. So if I fall asleep, I'm sorry. I only woke up some 14 hours ago to start my day. But there's definitely a lot of those intersections of tourism and Eurovision, or event management. Even how do you manage the actual event from the inception to the very end? What are some of the logistical challenges that come in it, right? Stakeholder management and all of that. So there's lots and lots and lots.
Okay. Yes.
So I sound very businessy.
Okay, let's go from business and the social science and then back to the humanities, maybe. Because I know Magdalena or Lena, you've been actually supervising a bunch of bachelor theses, right? And students do come up with topics. Have any students actually already come up to you with a topic about Eurovision?
Yeah, one person wrote their bachelor thesis on Conchita Wurst and especially the performance at on the Eurovision stage. So yeah, there was actually one person doing that.
Yeah. And I'm now actually asking the devil's advocate question. Is there any topics that you would say people should not write about in academia when it comes to Eurovision?
Well, I would say it depends on the research question, their hypothesis, and their theory and methods they're engaging with. So I would say no. If there's a good research question that they are able to answer, our bachelor theses aren't that long actually. They can write one with 15 to 20 pages or one with around 35 pages.
Okay.
So
So
if
the
that
message,
works, I would say you can choose any topic connected to the Eurovision Song Contest.
Okay.
And I would supervise it if you have good arguments.
There you go. Good arguments, academic rigor, but then any topic goes, right? Let's maybe test that a little bit. Because we started a little bit later, but I want to make sure that we have a break, but do start with the round table at the right time. But there's room for questions and answers, and I do want to give Lisa's students a go first. Either your questions, or maybe throwing topics at Lena saying, can I do research on this, right? That's fine too. Any questions from the audience, but first maybe the students from the course that Lisa is offering. Any questions you have for Oscar, Lena?
No pressure.
I announced it at the start, right? I announced it at the start.
1 credit for each question.
If not now, you can ask later, but I just want to make sure that time-wise you do have the space, right?
Sorry, I don't want to single you out, Bamnak, but I think your master thesis topic is really relevant also in not related especially to Eurovision, but the visibility or the non-visibility of,
Maybe just to make sure that the audience gets this, because you're actually Bamnak's supervisor, right?
Yes.
There we go. This is where it's coming from. Okay.
Sorry, to the online crowd, I'm talking to Bamnak Werner, who's writing her master thesis supervised by me, and I think your topic on the visibility or non-visibility of artists in the digital space is very relevant to the questions researching Eurovision. So maybe if you want, you could say something about it, but of course you don't have to.
Sure. Absolutely prepared. No, of course. As Lisa already said, I'm writing the thesis about visibility, but more so with the aspects of especially queer communities and black artists, how they are portrayed and seen by the algorithm on social media, because as we know, there have been changes, especially when it comes to TikTok. It's a political field, at least that's what I'm thinking. I have to prove it now. And when it comes to Eurovision, honestly, I didn't even think about this aspect until you invited me here. And it really dawned on me how important it is to consider the Eurovision within the algorithm, within the time of social media. So I'm so sorry, but I could talk about this now for 10 minutes, but we don't have that time. So
no, but that's fine actually, because you're going to be in another round table today, so we'll get back to it. No worries. Thank you for that answer. Thank you so much. Ben, can I go to you, ESC Insight? This sounds like a press conference, like ESC Insight. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we have a parallel here with the community media at the Eurovision Song Contest, because there's going to be hundreds of people working as press this week, of which, there's a few professional journalists there, but there'll be hundreds of people that are basically volunteers producing content this week. And I can understand that parallel with Eurovision research as well. Jack said something in the presentation yesterday about, for better or worse, there's been more of a theme and interest in the last 2 or 3 years in discussing war and politics with this Eurovision overview as this big global event in this place where it's been a big discussion. If you want to make more public value out of song contest research, do we need to go down that angle more to actually reflect more what the current discussions are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with you. But you mean in the media discourse, or especially in academia? because I'm not sure who really reads those academic publications, to be honest.
I mean that we've had a very, thank you, Sophia. We've had a very difficult few years of the Eurovision Song Contest, and if we're attaching research to add public value, then maybe we can be better placed to research to try and find those public value answers that I'm afraid broadcasters, the EBU and the general public have found hard to answer recently.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, maybe Oscar wants something to add on that.
Oscar, I see you making notes. Do you also have an answer to that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll try to answer. So we know obviously about the problems, many issues that Eurovision has over the years, whether the most recent scandals, but something to note is that this is something we know because we're in that bubble. Now, in order to do research and suggest that there is public value in it, we have to convince someone who is not necessarily in that bubble and doesn't really understand what the actual issue is. So if you can relate that to the actual problem that the society at large is facing, I absolutely see how you could use Eurovision in addressing that kind of research, at least in Europe. Now, I'm not entirely sure that I would ever be able to receive a competitive national grant from Australian Research Council on Eurovision, even though Australia does participate in Eurovision, but I think we are quite far away from it, and probably I would have really hard time convincing. But if I found an issue that is very pertinent in Australia and somehow found touchstone, right, with touch points with Eurovision, perhaps there is an opportunity there. But also what I thought, what an excellent topic in general, like community radio and the impact in learning of being a community radio, either journalist, amateur journalist, learning all that technology, and just because you are interested in Eurovision. I think there is a topic in itself as well, which also shows how people can upskill themselves through purely being involved with this, with Eurovision. So I hope it kind of answered the question in a way.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that answer, Oscar. I'm checking, Carla, if there's questions online, otherwise let me know. No? No, I saw other people raising their hands. Yeah, go ahead, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much. My question is, what can we do to assure that fans or people who are here in Vienna today really know about Eurovision studies? Why I asked that, yesterday when I was distributing my short survey, I asked dozens of fans at the arena and also at the village, oh, by the way, did you know about Eurovision studies? And not a single person of maybe 80 to 100 I asked said yes. So they were genuinely surprised by the fact that there is a survey on Eurovision, and at the arena, like, everybody wanted to have this QR code. So by the way, if you didn't get 800 of them, maybe still 600, I don't know. So whatever. And in the village, people were more skeptical. But I'm not talking about this. What I did not expect is that literally nobody knows that there is some kind of research. So how can we change that? Because I have no idea.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Oscar, Lena, if you want, Lena?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with a very basic answer, like promote it on social media, for example. That's where the fans are, that's where they connect. Yeah. Oscar?
Yeah, look, it's not Eurovision's fault or unique to Eurovision that, you know, researchers going on around is not know. So it's always, you know, making research sexy is always very hard for academics, especially when we're trying to go and talk to broader audiences. But I think probably, you know, I would just say the same what Magdalena said, but also probably working closer to for research groups such as Eurovision's, working closer to EBU, actually making it known that this happens would be great. But even you know, we had this book published, and we really tried hard to promote it through other means and social media and blogs and all of that, and none of that really got picked up as well. So I'm not sure whether research is just not being seen as sexy, or maybe we just don't find the language, we don't speak the same language to promote it, and not everyone is really interested in reading, you know, a 20-page article without pictures.
Okay. Yeah. There's room for 2 more questions. I see one there, and you have a question, right, Isabel? Then I see people in the back, but there's going to be a break, and the people are going to stay here, and you can talk to them, right? So.
Just on that point.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I am a fan. I picked up your flyer in the Euro Club, so it does work. So someone.
Wait, what did I give you that one?
So maybe, yes, maybe. So
I
just on that note, I am a fan. I picked up your flyer in the Euro Club. I was there until 4 o'clock this morning, so please excuse me. But I also I did my master's in policy and global governance, so this is fascinating for me to see how this comes together. I'm from Scotland, and one of the things I'm thinking about as you're talking is how do you engage with the fan clubs? So OGE is the international organisation. So how do you actually engage with the fan clubs? Because in Scotland we have meetings regularly, we have networks, we have conversation groups, we have everything happening. And I absolutely believe these conversations do happen informally, especially on the United by Music, which is coming next, I know. So I think people would be really interested to understand more. So I just wanted on that point to say that may be a way in to make it work, because it did work, and I just wanted to put that out.
Okay, so this is like a recommendation, right? It's not, and we'll take that into consideration, because there has been contacts with OGAEs, for example, but there's so much information going on. It's very hard to reach people with the flow of information on anything that's going on, right? But we'll get back to that. I'd love to talk to you about that.
And talking about OGAE, I met Ricardo in OGAE Portugal. So.
There you go. Yep.
My name is Ricardo, and I'm currently doing my PhD in based on the intrinsic motivation of popular culture in the teaching of English as a second language.
Yeah.
And I felt in the beginning the same feelings that were mentioned at the beginning of this talk, where we're not taken seriously as researchers and academics when we bring up the topic of Eurovision. I felt there was nothing that was done explicitly, but I felt like people were giving me the cold shoulder whenever I spoke passionately about Eurovision. And I thought that was a Portugal thing. My co-supervisor, Heiko Muchenbacher, in Norway, told me, no, it's not a Portuguese thing, it's an everywhere thing. And what I'm feeling in this room right now is that there's an opportunity here for better networking, for an opportunity to improve networking, and perhaps through that we could Eurovision could be seen or starts to be seen more as a core or mainstream area of academic research, as we all, I think, tacitly feel that we are on the fringes of academia, as you put it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Would you like to ask that question? Oscar, Magdalena, both?
Anyone who would like to answer.
Let's start a network. That's basically the message. Oscar?
I think I will just go back to that, and it's great PhD that you are doing, I believe, and for those that attended yesterday, I did say, I mean, I've lived in Australia for around 20 years, but I'm originally from the Baltic states. I grew up in Lithuania and Latvia, and I'm pretty sure my first interest in actually learning English was through Eurovision, because I wanted to understand what's going on there. Beyond the commentary, and kind of that triggered my interest in geography and all of that, and I'm pretty sure I'm not really alone in it as well. But where I will go back what I already said, I think a lot of people have blinkers because they're not as involved with Eurovision as we are. Like, look at us, besides, a lot of you probably went to sleep at 4 o'clock. And then you are making your way here and listening to us speak. So I think it's just like really trying hard to show how multifaceted Eurovision is, and it's not just those 3 minutes of a song. There's far more moving details in it, and we kind of need to professionalize it a little bit more and sell it a bit better as well. And probably we can do it better when we are in one bigger network. I would agree with you, rather than being separate, separate entities all around the world.
Okay, yep. Then let's go to the last question.
Isabel and Peter, we have to...
Okay, but then there's going to be a break. Let me tell you in advance, I'm going to give you 5 minutes for coffee and potty training, and then you're back. 2 more questions. Yeah, okay.
So Isabel and then Peter.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a question which is linked to Johan's question of drawing attention to Eurovision studies. So my question is for both of you, maybe the 3 of you, because Wilfried is a teacher as well. Before drawing attention to ESC studies, why don't we draw attention to the ESC itself within young people? I teach young people from 14 till 18 in Portugal, and most of them don't know about the ESC at all. So I think that it could be an important tool of language learning, of cultural value learning. So how do you feel about this? Before people get interested in the ESC studies, they must know what the ESC actually is. And there are a lot of people who still don't know that it even exists.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll keep it short. Some students of mine are here or are joining us for the next panel from one of my seminars. And I decided to introduce them to the Eurovision Song Contest in the first place, introducing the EBU, the ESC's history, and so on, so that they can follow. So that's a really great idea. Thank you.
Yep. Oscar, your answer maybe to that?
I absolutely agree with that. And as I mentioned earlier, I do teach event operations management, event-based units, and I always have a case study on Eurovision or part of Eurovision, whether that's risk management, stakeholder management, or even destination branding through events. So definitely, Eurovision in small dosages could work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm thinking whether making students aware of Eurovision is one thing, and I think we definitely should do that. What I would relate it to is that very often I see students and they don't even, they think that there is such a thing as non-academic and academic topics. And then when they come to you and they talk about what they want to write about is something that other people expect. But if you start digging a little bit deeper and you ask, well, what are you really passionate about? They might come up with something that is Eurovision related, but it could also be another topic, right? Even if they don't know Eurovision, I think as university we should be much more open to telling students you can do anything you want as long as you come up with a good argument and rigor and a research question. Then anything can be investigated, right? I think that should be the approach. Yeah. Okay, last question, and then a break. Yeah.
Thank you. It's not so much a question, but a comment, because I would actually challenge the notion that Eurovision studies is not taken seriously. Talking from the United States, I'm a professor in Ohio. I've been teaching a Eurovision class for 3 years now. I got my job because of Eurovision. I know of a colleague who got his job because of Eurovision. We do have a group of researchers here that are also known to many of you that are publishing a handbook on Eurovision with Oxford University Press, which is coming out in 2 years. So I think it has been established very much as a field. Perhaps this is a question, we do have a divide, which is a divide, say, of intellectual history between the Anglo-American sphere of cultural studies and continental Europe. I think Eurovision studies has been, paradoxically, been established as a field of studies much more so outside of Europe than within.
There you go. Oscar, Lena, any response to that question or comment? Or would you
That's
agree?
certainly the first time I hear that someone got a job because of Eurovision. I would certainly love that job to have. Yeah, I think the other issue is that Eurovision is such a broad, as I said, such a multifaceted event. There's so many topics that go in, right? There's musicology, there's media studies, there's business studies, there's leisure studies, and all of that. And I'm not quite sure how disciplines are arranged in European universities or even American universities, but within Australian structure, right, you're kind of forced into, like, for example, I'm in business services, right? So I'm only in kind of looking at event studies and tourism studies, management studies, and all of that. But perhaps that kind of more multidisciplinary approach to Eurovision could be an answer here. But it's great to hear that in the US you are doing that. Too sad that American Eurovision didn't go that well, though.
Yes. Thank you very much. On that note, there is much to talk about. Follow-ups, we'll do that. Thank you so much. Oscar, right from Australia. Lena from Vienna. I'm going to cut short the break. It was planned for 15 minutes, but we had a bit of a delay because of losing the connection, right? So it's 5 minutes, and then we're back with the second round table. Okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, hello Europe. Very welcome to the second roundtable of the second conference day of the Eurovision's International Conference. And since the topic of this year is celebrating 70 years of public value in the Eurovision Song Contest, we have exquisite panel here with very interesting people, starting with Klaus Unterberger, who is head of the Public Value Department at ORF. He has been closely involved in developing the EBU Public Value Framework and debates on the role of public service media. On my right-hand side, there's Ramūnas Zilnis. He's a Lithuanian music journalist, head of pop music at LRT, the national broadcaster, and longtime Eurovision commentator and reporter. How many times have you been commentating Eurovision?
Well, as a commentator, I think this is my sixth year. But I just calculated, like as a journalist and head of press and press representative of Lithuanian acts, I just calculated this is my 20th Eurovision in person. So.
Okay. So on my left-hand side, there is Volker Schmidt, Director, Customer Development and Application Engineering at Sennheiser, specializing in wireless audio technologies for large-scale live production. How many times have you been at Eurovision?
I think it's my 9th time, so it's pretty okay.
Okay, and here on my left-hand side, many of you might know her from television, of course, from the Austrian national final. Bamlak Werner, she's an Austrian singer-songwriter combining diverse cultural and musical influences with her song We Are Not Just One Thing. She participated in this year's Austrian national final. And you're a researcher as well, as we heard a few minutes before. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Well, I have the particular advantage or disadvantage to come from Germany. Talking about the public value of the Eurovision Song Contest is more or less reduced in the commentary section to the question, why do we have to pay our fee every year or every 3 months for such a rubbish? What is this money used for? So, Klaus, I think you have heard these questions many times.
Absolutely.
So, what are you answering to an upset tax or fee payer when they're saying, why do we pay money for that?
Well, I do agree. This is some sort of a painful experience, like you experienced, obviously, in convincing your own community to deal with the issue of public value of the song contest of Eurovision. But and I experienced the same when I started many years ago to deal with the issue of public value. My own community did not have any sensitivity, I can tell you. They thought it's some sort of weird scientific approach or something like that. But that's life. That's life, actually. I think we have to insist to address the connection between, public service media and, in your particular case, of Eurovision and social cohesion, the common good. Yeah, this is a matter of existence for democracy, for our societies. So what I'm doing in convincing people is, first of all, to let them think about what is the benefit for you. Yeah, so I'm giving answers. Not just about the eternal wisdom of public service media or something like that. Yeah, there are a lot of people speaking about the beauty of democracy, but not being democratic on itself. Yeah, so therefore I think one has to enter the real reality and give answers. What is the benefit for you as a citizen? Yeah. For public service media. And I think there's a main distinction that is even important for you in your area of Eurovision. It is that we are addressing citizens and not just consumers. Yeah, many people just identify themselves as consumers. But what we are doing in public institutions like universities, we are addressing people as citizens. And well, for sure, some people have forgotten about that, obviously. But living in a democracy, we have to insist that first of all, we are citizens. Yeah? And this is why I do appreciate the Song Contest and Eurovision that much, because what you are doing is to focus on the connection between entertainment, music industry, creativity, and social cohesion, yeah, and society and citizenship. So therefore, thank you for standing firm yeah, and feeling the pain, yeah, being neglected for a while. But I think we are doing a very important work, especially in times where social cohesion is not number one, yeah, being addressed. We all know in digital transformation, it's about the dominance of business, yeah, and not about citizenship. But I think if we want democracy to survive, we simply have to insist. So that's a strong belief, but we have to clever as well to find ways to convince people. So whenever you've been talking about why, your research is not mentioned, yeah, I do agree. I do have an answer, by the way. Media should do that. Public service media should do that, yeah? Maybe even the hosts of the Song Contest should address it. Obviously, there's not space enough for a lecture, yeah, during the show, yeah? But, spending so much time on reporting on the euphoria, yeah, which is connected to Eurovision, one could simply mention it, yeah? So therefore, I do agree, feeling the same pain, but again, the answer is standing firm and addressing the issue. We are all a sharing community in that, and I appreciate that your work has been so strong, yeah, that public value now is an issue, yeah, connected to entertainment and so thank you for your work.
I would like to continue on that question and elaborate a little bit more, because we have public service media for a long, long time, yes, but the concept of public value is quite recent, or at least it has been developed in recent years. Why did it take public service media so much time to reflect on their own public value?
Well, there's a very easy answer. First of all, public value in the true sense was always at the core of public service media, because it is about the common good, it is about social cohesion, it is about supporting citizenship and democracy, and in all single public missions and remits all over the world, wherever public service media exists, it is written down in the legal contract. So we do have a contract with society. Just remember the BBC, when they started, it was like a school for democracy, yeah, to inform, entertain, and educate. So therefore, sometimes we did forget about that, because we thought it's given for granted. When I started to deal with that, I can tell you, people thought of me, and my CEO back then, and I've had a struggle with her, I can tell you, she said, everything we do is public service. And I said, no. It's not, because we're doing a lot of crap, yeah, which is not connected to public service at all, yeah, and we are still doing a lot of things that are not perfectly public value. Yeah, I do agree with many critics. So this is a learning experience, and our understanding, your understanding of the common good, has changed quite a lot. When I started watch television and the Eurovision Song Contest, there was no debate about gender identity. Yeah? Now it is, for good reasons. So I think our understanding of public purpose, of social cohesion is changing, and we have to adapt. And by the way, the reason why we have to focus on public value in media as well as at university is simply because there's a lot of commercial business out there, yeah, that we are now at the brink of existence. Don't forget about that, yeah. Even universities, do have troubles to fund themselves, yeah, and public service media as well. Many participants from European countries are at the brink of existence, actually. So therefore, also Eurovision is not given for granted. Yeah, yeah. If the cost-cutting programs are going on in the way as they are, there's nothing given for granted. Some of my distinguished colleagues, especially in the South and East, They are literally at the brink of existence. So don't think that Eurovision is happening in 20 years just because you want it or we want it. Yeah? If the segment of public service media is suffocated, Eurovision will not exist. Yeah, maybe you can go to Google or to Meta. Yeah, maybe they will pay for some business cases. Yeah, but the song contest and Eurovision in its current form will not exist because there's nobody here that actually will fund it. And just a last glimpse of reality. You might have heard some politicians welcoming you here in this wonderful city, and I do agree. I'm living happily in Vienna. And they say they appreciate Eurovision, but at the same time, they are forcing Austrian Broadcasting Corporation on a cost-cutting program of 70 million euros. We don't know what to do about it. Literally, we don't know about to do that. Yeah. So therefore, this is a suffocating moment for the whole community of public service media. So I'm hoping that you, as researchers, do not just praise the diversity of the Eurovision, but you keep in mind there's also one point of analysis which is very important: how to fund institutions like universities and public service media who focus on public purpose and social cohesion. It's not just about business, it's not just about revenues, it's not just about consumers, it's about citizenship. We have to support and also fund appropriately.
Mm-hmm. You were nodding at some point, especially in terms of when Klaus was talking about the cuttings in budget. Are you facing a similar situation in Lithuania?
Yeah, I think many broadcasters do in Europe. It's just a sign of the times, isn't it? So yes, in Lithuania, they froze the funding, which was supposed to go up this year, and it's already causing quite a disruption in many plans of public broadcaster in terms of producing television content, radio content, what have you. Lithuanian radio and television have 2 TV channels, 3 radio stations, a website, and internet radio stations. So as you can imagine, the plans had to be changed. But as I said, this is a sad situation, but it's happening, and I'm not sure if we should go into the reasons, the political side of things, but somehow, in many European territories, this is happening at the moment. So if you would like to ask about Eurovision, how does this affect our taking part in Eurovision, because there are some countries, it's not a secret, who in the past have refrained from taking part in Eurovision for financial reasons. I hope, Lithuania is in Eurovision for the foreseeable future, of course, the simple reason being that I don't think we really have to defend taking part in Eurovision in front of Lithuanian society, simply for a reason that it's a wildly popular contest in Lithuania. Lithuanians are very much into it. We see it as our window into the world. We are a small country. We don't really have big international music stars who could, represent our country in other music forums. So Eurovision is the one. And also there's a reason that, Latvians have won it, Estonians have won it, and we haven't. So until we win it, we're very much into it. I mean, the moment we win it, I guess we will just go back. But nowadays it's always oh, Lithuania, the final. By the way, we went to a final yesterday. I hope you all watched it. So, pardon me if my voice is a bit coarse, but we had to celebrate a bit. Our 6th final in a row, so I also hear it's quite a long streak, so we are extremely lucky. It's always we're in the final, but what about trophy? And I was it's difficult. It's 35 countries. Well, Latvians and Estonians have won it. It's always about that. 23 years ago. So we have surveys, and there's a huge support for Lithuania taking part in Eurovision. Of course, some people are very skeptical, and of course, for people who are skeptical, there's always this card. There's always this argument that it's public money. And and of course, taking part in Eurovision costs money, and maybe we should spend it some other way. But it's not overwhelming. Whenever Eurovision season comes, Lithuania is mad about basketball. We are very bad at football, but we are great at basketball, or at least we think so. So basketball is kind of holy. I mean, because we used to win Olympics with medals and stuff. And just to say that if Lithuania takes part in Eurovision final, which we will on Saturday, the ratings are kind of higher than the most important basketball game. So that says something. I mean, every promoter in Lithuania who does concerts knows that if there's a Eurovision semi-final where Lithuania is taking part, you are not staging a concert in the Lithuanian capital. You are not doing anything. You're just doing a Eurovision viewing party in your bar, in your venue, anywhere, because it doesn't make sense to try anything that you would try to sell tickets to. Because everybody will be watching Eurovision either at home or in some in some public space.
So it will be a cozy experience.
Or not cozy, there are like big yards in Lithuania where like 2,000 people watch Eurovision together. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there's a big venue, outdoor venue, and so all the coolest clubs, and if you're like indie rock club or jazz club or like what have you, I mean, like Eurovision is kind of the most important thing on that night. Nobody does anything else. So yeah, sorry, I just kind of digress. But in terms of like defending the decision to take part in Eurovision, I don't think we have this question really. What we have a question about is we also did a survey where sometimes people are going, well, some countries choose their artists internally and some countries do public selection. So of course we have public selection, and we did a survey where we asked like, would you mind if we basically we asked, would you mind if we chose the artist internally if the artist was a very well-known artist, blah, blah, blah. I think like 75% people said no. So Lithuanians want to take part. They also want to get involved. They want to be in the decision, who is going. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have this joke. Sorry, I'll give you back the microphone.
He's a commentator.
I have this joke where some people, who are like, snobbish about Eurovision in Lithuania, and they're like, oh no, I don't watch. That's nonsense. I mean, like we all have encountered a friend or two. You say that. I always say, Eurovision is something that nobody watches, but everybody sees. So it's kind of that thing. So I don't watch it, and the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, you are online commenting on every aspect of how you didn't like this or that part of our country's performance. So yeah, Eurovision is something that is really important.
You can keep it. I will go.
Oh yeah.
Because we are talking about public value, mm-hmm. and we had the big example of the BBC, which mm-hmm. is a broadcaster in a big country. The Lithuanian broadcaster is small and emerged after the fall of the Iron Curtain. So is your approach to public value different from the approach that a country like the United Kingdom might have?
In Eurovision context or
in general?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, like, BBC is definitely something that we, look up to and, share some practices and, take example from. So you should, the question probably should be more exact.
I think that a small country has different things at stake than a country like the United Kingdom with a flourishing music scene, for example. So do you have, for example, the support of national musicians is more in your focus than it would be in a country with a big music market like the UK?
I think so, absolutely. Let's just say, one example could be that we have a radio station called LRT Opus, and for those of you who live in the UK or listen to BBC, I would say that is an answer to BBC Six Music, but kind of like more left field, more alternative, more kind of. And LRT is actually the only media platform that would give exposure and airplay to some of the best alternative music artists that nobody else plays, simply because commercial radios wouldn't touch it with a stick, because they would say this is too weird, too strange, too difficult. We're not going to do that. And for example, we produce a radio show every month, which lasts half an hour. It's called LRT Opus Pilnet, LRT Opus Full Moon, which is basically half an hour live session with alternative acts from Lithuania, talking about the music, exposing their music, and we also have a sister show to that, which is exposing up-and-coming artists. So it's very much divided in Lithuania in terms of what is pop and what is in the UK. Well, since we're talking about BBC, you can be kind of what we would call alternative, but also be in the charts and be on pop radio and stuff. And Lithuania is kind of very clear; it's either pop or alternative. And alternative music is basically catered for by Lithuanian public broadcaster, because everyone else would go, we only play the hits. And we have a radio station that doesn't really play a lot of hits, but plays great music. And actually, this is very interesting in this context. it's very interesting to mention Eurovision, because what musicians always say is on Lithuanian television, Lithuanian commercial TV channels, there's not really a place to expose your new music, your new songs to a wide audience. So in many cases, and I openly admit that in many cases, artists who come to Eurovision selection, they come there to be seen and heard by the audience. We're not necessarily, we are not necessarily into really want to go to Eurovision. We are like, let's showcase our song. In some cases, it creates wonders. So last year, I don't know how many of you remember last year's song of Lithuania, it's Katarsis, Tavoakis. So last year, like a bunch of, let's be honest, like a moody indie rockers came over to a Lithuanian selection, and in the beginning, everybody was like, who are these guys? I mean, like, this is not happening. They're probably like, it will be very difficult for them to get through to Eurovision. And they won the national selection with a landslide. And and we went to Eurovision, and everybody still went, well, we are not going to qualify. They are two kind of things, and we qualified, and we were like, we did pretty well. And on the basis of Eurovision participation, we now have done 2 European tours, 12, 15 concerts every run. Went to Berlin, Warsaw. I can't remember if we were in Vienna, probably not, but Stockholm, London, Helsinki.
So you support Catharsis during the tours?
Well, we talk about it a lot, and we contact. We don't support them, no. But what I mean, if not for Eurovision, if LRT hadn't sent them to Eurovision, we wouldn't have got this exposure. And the thing is about with Eurovision artists, I see that happening more and more every year. Sorry again if I digress, but I find that also interesting. So if you're an artist from smaller country or a country which doesn't have many international stars, you come to Eurovision, and suddenly it used to be that after that you probably go on tour and play to diaspora. I mean, so you go. So there are many Lithuanians everywhere. Now with Catharsis, what happened? We went to Poland, and basically we sold out. We are selling out venues of 500, 600, 700 people. Like we just did a 1,000 venue. And the local people are coming to see it because what I find interesting, but especially with young generation, they check you out on Eurovision, they like you, they go, we see you. There are quite a few examples like that. Joker Out from Slovenia is a great example. We went on Eurovision stage, sang in Slovenian, and 2 months later, Lewis Capaldi is at their show in London, and then we are doing a sold-out tour of 20 concerts, 1,500 people venues. Nobody understands what's going on. Now, what's going on is basically that during those 3 minutes, if you sing and people like you, they are interested. They are coming to see you, and we have like a first-hand example. Nobody believed that a band singing in Lithuanian moody songs about being very sad and love has ended, and their songs are called Don't Let Me. It's very sad music, and they're singing in Lithuanian, and they're selling our halls, and I was at the festival in the Netherlands, and there were literally 100 screaming Dutch ladies, girls, just going crazy about this Lithuanian band and singing every word, and 3 of those, they said they went and started learning Lithuanian in a Lithuanian course because they loved one song in Eurovision that happened. So anyway, my point is, now there's a value in sending an act from a smaller country which can gain huge things from taking part in Eurovision, and then by doing that also give exposure to the country's music scene in general.
Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting example from a small country in Eastern Europe. Bamlak, do you envy them?
It's very complex, honestly, listening to all of that, because as a participant from the pre-selection in Austria, it was very interesting for me to see how, because I got in 3rd, but from the public audience, from the voting, I got in 2nd. So the jury rated me as 3rd place altogether. I got 3rd, but it was only 4 points from the jury, so I was like, oh, I'm a sucker, I suck at this. And then the public voting announced me, and I'm the 2nd place from the public. So it's very interesting how that resonated with my now career, because then I knew, oh, okay, so the jury thinks it's not all that good, but the public in Austria thought it is good. And then how does that translate for an artist? For me personally, it translated in sponsorships, it translated in access to places I would have never gotten to. I know that for a fact. And that leads me to something that has been said earlier by this lovely lady over there, I think, if I reckon correctly. You said before you introduce people to the whole academia of Eurovision, you have to introduce them to Eurovision itself. And I think why not take it even further and say, why not introduce people to music as culture? Because that's something that I'm talking about in my master thesis. that I'm very, very passionate about, but also quite frustrated about, because how does one articulate the importance and the intensity and the complexity that comes with saying culture is something you want, art is something you want, music, creating music, learning about art, learning about how to create your own craftsmanship is something that you want, and telling that to young people. It's very complex. And just to go on and say, oh, we have this academia field, there is so much hidden structures of gatekeeping, of people. There's an example that I've been going into with my thesis right now to give a more detailed perspective. Let's say if you have a migration background and you come here and you build yourself something. Let's say you work a 40-hour shift, which most people do when they start here. And then, so that's very specific because I talked to people, I interview people for my work. So she's a mother, this example, right? She has 4 kids. And I asked her, well, I mean, for relaxation, you could turn on some music, right? Wouldn't you like that? And she honestly looked at me and she said, you know what I would like after a long day? Silence. I want silence. Sure, okay, I didn't even consider that. So how do I tell her, but there is a form of consuming it in a silent way, like you could read about music. There's so many ways. And it got her thinking, but it also got me thinking. That's why I'm doing my research. Some things to us in the academia field, we have all these blind spots within our bubble. I think that was also something that was mentioned earlier. We have so many blind spots when it comes to our community because we assume things and we get comfortable in our position, in our perspectives. And I think it's the most important thing here is to switch perspective, to talk to people who are not within this field and switch position maybe. And yeah.
Do you feel that the broadcasters who are offering a platform for musicians in Eurovision and other music shows, they need to put themselves more in the musicians' shoes?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think that's where it first started, the whole way to go on stage with and cooperating with ORF and towards the show. It's been, the whole way has been very, very intense, like all the coordinating of how do you perform, what do you perform, how is the costume, what is the costume, etc. You have to have a very good team in order to get there, because at the end it was 12 people and I think it was around 500, 400 songs that participated. And in the show, I can't remember her name sadly, but in the jury there was one woman, she said, it's so sad. I mean, on the one hand she said, it's so beautiful to see all these lovely artists and all this incredible music coming out of Austria, and we only see 12 acts. There must be so much more. And I screamed from the back. If you go back, I screamed like, wow! Because I was so passionate about what she said. Because there is so much art. When you look at Austria, it's the same thing. We're such a small itty bitty country, Vienna, in Austria in general. But we have so much to offer and so much more beyond classical music and beyond Austropop and all this stuff. Not saying that that is not good. It's incredible and it's beautiful and it has all, you know, it's beautiful that it's there, but there's so many nuances, so many colors when it comes to Austria. And I just wished, also connecting to Eurovision right now we have all this attention. And as an example, the radio stations, yeah, they do play a few songs from the past Eurovision shows and participants. But however, you could really use this time to show our artists. And that was something that always irritated me quite a bit. I don't know how other countries did do it, but right now with Austria being the host, I find it quite fascinating and yet a bit irritating that you don't have a proper program where you showcase to the world, or to Europe at least, hey, we might be small, but we have all these cool artists, check it out. And here is this, and we have a stage over there, that's the independent artist stage of Austria, because look at that. I could come up with like 10 examples how to broadcast this within seconds, just because I'm passionate about it. So I don't know, that's also a question maybe. Is there not enough passion maybe for the independent artists bubble here in Austria? However, it is missing. That's all I know. So.
Mm-hmm. Klaus, the motto "Celebrate Diversity" was a few years ago in the focus of the Eurovision Song Contest, but the diversity celebrated was more in a different way. But isn't it that diversity Eurovision should celebrate?
Well, I absolutely agree, and I agree we can do better. Yeah, as Austrian Broadcasting Corporation, that's a given. Yeah. And I have no real answer why we don't do better. I know one example for you, and I'm 45 years now working for Austrian Broadcasting Corporation, and it's been never so hard than today to install a new program, because whenever you go up front and say, I've got a good idea, your boss would say, well, we don't have the money for doing that. Yeah, that's not an excuse. I hate personally that argument, because I know that there are some countries having less money than we have and doing wonderful things. Yeah, so therefore that should not be an excuse, but that's the reality in my company. Yeah. Besides that, I think that knowing the program of Austrian Broadcasting Corporation quite well, there's no media being that diverse than our programming. Yeah, maybe you don't see it in many ways. Yeah, you don't watch it, but I think I'm pretty much surveying and analyzing our program, and all I can say that public service media, not just in Austria, is taking diversity very, very seriously. Yeah, far more than any other commercial media is doing that, because they are focusing on diversity when they can sell it, when they market it, yeah, when there's a business interest behind that. But once it is not given and not connected to revenue, you're gone. You're completely forgotten. And I can give you many, many examples when we invest into diversity, if it's regional diversity, if it's diversity in many, many ways of cultural, but the fact is that these are very, very diverse and many, many, many aspects, yeah, to fill in. So therefore, that should not be an excuse. Again, I would appreciate if your music and your colleagues might have a bigger stage, yeah, at Austrian Broadcasting Corporation right now. For example, I started in a program called Ohne Maulkorb. Yeah? Nobody will remember nowadays. well, yeah, some older. But we were yeah, and I was working already, so I'm retiring in a few months, unfortunately I have to say. Yeah. But back then, we did everything to go in every basement initiative, yeah, to show it, yeah, but it was a different time, as you might remember, yeah, and sometimes it's very, very hard to be rebellious, yeah, as we were back in time, yeah. So I hopefully your generation will be rebellious again, yeah, saying no again, and this for sure is one big potential of the Eurovision, if I'm allowed to say that, yeah, just 1 minute maybe, because I was mentioning that I've been on a panel recently also connected to the Eurovision, and I thought afterwards, how can we actually convince people about the value of Eurovision who don't like it? Who don't like the music, yeah? Who don't like these embarrassingly funny and happy people having one party after the other, yeah? And these weird artists, they don't like it, yeah, for many, many reasons. And I thought, how can we convince that? And one of my ideas was just focusing what the song contest and the Eurovision is not. And the Eurovision is not nationalistic, for example. That's very important, because our world is full, yeah, of America first, of Russia being back, an imperialistic, aggressive power, yeah, of the Brexiteers, yeah, going wild and strong again, and even in my country. The Eurovision is the contradiction It is multinational, it is multilingual, yeah, it's multi-perspective. So it's a huge political power and a completely different mindset. Yeah, everybody not liking the music of the song contest could have an interest, being not going back in time. Second example would be song contest is not about exclusion. Yeah, and just to get it right, our world today is full of exclusion. Yeah, the narrative of the white man is about exclusion of all the others. The narrative of people who do not accept that there are people out there who do not restrict themselves to male and female. Yeah, they are out there. Yeah, and there's another dimension of exclusion, very harsh, which is the social exclusion. Yeah, the gap between the poor and the rich is widening enormously. So our society are at the brink of not just being segmented but destroyed. And you know what? The Eurovision is a contradiction because it's not about exclusion, it's about inclusive. So it's about the future of our society. So again, and the most important point for me is connected to the digital transformation, is the Eurovision is not a filter bubble. Just consider this. It took 15 to 20 years of huge economic power of the digital giants to implement the filter bubble in our brain, yeah? To get us connected to their artificial intelligence. Yeah? We connected, not because we like each other, know each other, but we are connected through their artificial intelligence. And then we find ourselves in a filter bubble and everybody's complaining about that, for good reasons. You know what? Eurovision is not. Eurovision is about community building, about going out there. You had a party last night. I was sitting at home, yeah, drinking my beer, yeah, but it was not funny getting out. But Eurovision is a contradiction. Eurovision is saying no to many things we don't like and don't need in society. So therefore, this could be also an angle to convince people, saying you don't have to like our music, particularly, yeah. But you know, you might enjoy that we are saying no, that our society is actually being destroyed, and we want to create the future. And this is for me the societal value of the song contest. So therefore, there are a lot of people who could be convinced by giving them a reason, yeah, to support what we are all in, which is our community. Yeah, which is our society. And I think the younger generation should actually create a new form, yeah, of their own society. So therefore, I'm not desperate. Yeah, even though, you know, I started public value stuff 20 years ago, and I thought, you know, after 2 years, I will be finished. Yeah, what a crap. Yeah, now I'm retiring, and hopefully Conrad will go on. Yeah, but don't be desperate. Yeah, doing the job. I think it's worthwhile, as I said before.
Absolutely. You have sent, Lithuanian broadcaster has sent a drag act to Eurovision, which is something that many people which is something that many people would not have expected, especially from Lithuania.
Oh yeah, you're calling Lion Seeker a drag now. I mean,
well, he's a famous figure in the drag scene.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trolling you. Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm just saying in terms of like his current persona is not really like a drag.
Obviously, so he's kind of drag, but in fact he appeared in this Lithuanian national finals as a real drag act. You had same-sex kisses on the Eurovision stage. Which is something that might go against the mainstream of the thoughts of the Lithuanian public. Does a public broadcaster has to go against the mainstream to create public value?
I think so. I personally absolutely think so. And also I think it's an interesting subject that you touched upon, because I think when we're talking about what Eurovision in particular changes in public, you know, perception of things, this is one of the very, very important things that we need to talk about in terms of like Lithuania being a small, you know, country in the east of Europe, formerly, as you all know, 50 years of Soviet oppression, and you know, and things were quite different than in the rest of Western Europe, you know, in those days. So it's not a secret that there was quite a lot, and there still is, you know, some homophobia, because you know, when it comes to LGBTQ, and it's it's way better than it used to be. Like, you know, like 10 years ago, we used to have Pride in Vilnius, and there would be like people who are shouting, you know, insults, and there's police and everything and so on. Nothing of that kind now. I mean, you know, we'll have a Pride in June, and Nebulosa is coming to play like a Eurovision act, and and we had quite a few Eurovision acts from the past, and you know, drag queens and everything. But in the context of Eurovision, so it was going through my mind that in a country that has quite a big pop scene, we only have 4 openly queer performers, well-known openly queer artists, and 2 of them were in Eurovision in the past, you know, 3 seasons. So Sylvester Belt and Lion Sika are 2 of the openly queer, well-known Lithuanian artists. The other 2 took part in national selections. And Eurovision, I think, has a way of changing the thinking of some people who are watching this, because everybody loves Eurovision. And then you get someone like Sylvester Belt with a song called Lugano a couple of years ago, where just all the country fell in love with because it was a summer hit. And actually, this was a guy who nobody knew a lot about, you know, before they just chose him, and you know, and he won the selection, and then there was a press conference, and they were like, "So Sylvester, you know, so how is your, like, you know, everyday life?" And he was like very open and said, "Yeah, I'm gay, you know." No, and people were like, oh. So we got into a situation where some people were, we didn't know. We brought and say, wow, so would you have voted the other way around? And they're like, well, no, actually, we love the song. So, I mean, you know, with Lion Sika as well, just people love him. I mean, you know, they just think it's an interesting, strange, weird, artistic performance. And my point is, I think Eurovision changes, it changes the way that people think about those things. Even the thing that started, which by the way, a beautiful, beautiful sequence opening the event yesterday. I mean, like, you know, yeah, it's just amazing. Yeah, you know, it was, you know, it reduces people to tears. And I do know for a fact there will be a part of the audience, probably in Lithuania and some other small countries as well in Europe, who you know, who will go like, okay, so what is this? You know, why do we have, like, you know, why do we have, like, this kind of opening? But I think it changes. Like, I think Eurovision helped to change things how the Lithuanian audience looks at those things. It looks at LGBTQ. I mean, like, and because I repeat myself, but I think it is very, very important. Because without Eurovision, I think, you know, that change in the societies, in the way society looks at those things and looks at pop stars and everything, wouldn't have changed. I think it played a key and major role, because even if you have, like, this, you know, backwards, weird thinking about, you know, about you know, queer people, you turn on the television and you know, there's a Lithuanian contestant and he's gay and he's singing, everybody's happy, and he's in the final and the whole country celebrates, and you know, and you go, look, okay, you know, great, yeah. So I hope it changed the minds of quite a few people.
Thank you. So we see Eurovision can change societies, or at least try to do so, but a very important aspect of Eurovision that we mostly neglect, and that is also contributing to its public value, is the technical aspect, because throughout its 70 years of existence, it always pushed forward the technical development, and this is why we have Volker Schmidt here from Sennheiser with beautiful Sennheiser microphone. So Volker, what makes Eurovision such a special event in technical terms?
First of all, I would like to share with you guys the passion which you feel, right? So it's amazing. What we hear here is, I'm so thrilled. So some people in my organization, in my company, call me Mr. Eurovision. Okay, whatever. It's interesting. And I would like to split this question into 3 parts. Technology-wise, great. Eurovision is always at the forefront of what you can do. When you're looking at the laser show from yesterday, oh my goodness, so it was amazing. Life of Tommy, oh my goodness, it was so close to tears. from a technical guy, right? So, a male technical guy. So come on, think about that. And I saw this gentleman backstage reviewing his life. And he was sitting there very calm, and I was thinking, how can we help him to make this performance a good one? And that's the driver for us. So, new technology helps, no doubt. We are looking for new things. How can we contribute to the society as well? So when I'm looking back, and this was interesting, so 11 years ago, as we did Eurovision here in Vienna at the same location, oh my goodness, we were bringing in equipment like crazy. It was massive. I was rolling our equipment for this year's to shipping department in Germany. 10 minutes later, they called me and said, are you certain that you didn't forget something? And this is the aspect where I'm saying we are helping the environment. Hey, less truck space, less energy, all this stuff. So this is helping the society as well. I love the idea that the ORF declared this year the Eurovision as a green event.
As it was last time.
As it was last time. But now we are getting there. With all respect. So much more intense. And when you're looking at how we are doing things, it's great. Technology-wise, this is what is driving us. This is helping us and broadcasters and singers, songwriters, talents, artists on stage to perform better. This is one aspect, in my opinion. The second aspect, and this is the reason why I love the Eurovision so much, it's a family event from our side. So we are meeting once a year. You see the same people over and over again, and you meet them and you think, hey, how's family and what are we doing? So this is another aspect. And the third aspect, which is for me in particular very important, we are doing since many, many years during the Eurovision a charity thing. So this year and in 2.5, 3 hours-ish, we will have kids from the Children's Hospital here in Vienna, from St. Anna Hospital. They are coming to see us. And we will do a backstage tour for them. So this is, you guys have a much wider reach than we have, right? So it's so much bigger what we have. We are trying to do this in our little bubble, and we try to make, this is my personal highlight all the time when I'm seeing in eyes of kids who are struggling. And you see this big wow. That's so cool. And this is something which I'm keenly interested in, and this drives me to make Eurovision a success.
This is a wonderful initiative. Okay, yeah. But Eurovision has triggered so many technical developments. And Sennheiser has accompanied the show for many, many years. So is there any particular thing that Eurovision has triggered that has become a standard in the industry?
Absolutely, yes. We moved from analog transmission to digital transmission, and now we are at the forefront of digital transmission with regards to miniaturizing technology. We have this year for the first time a bidirectional system on air. So that means you can talk into a headset and you can listen to your in-ear. Think about that. That's nothing really amazing, right? It is. Because when I have to go to Mrs. Swarovski and tell her, in the past, 2 packs, chink, chink. Now I'm doing only chink, 1. She loves it for that. She loves us for this fact because nobody is fiddling around, and you know this much better, right? So it's such an intimate situation where people feel, oh no, don't touch me, so I'm stressed anyway. So, and now we help them. So this is a good thing. Technology-wise, we are pushing the boundaries, absolutely. And this is important as well, and it was mentioned before, it is an event where we have a lot of females working. Our industry, unfortunately, is a male-dominated industry. So, and for Eurovision, and thanks to ORF and all the other broadcasters in the past, we have so many excellent ladies working with us. It's amazing. So, technology-wise, yes, and from the aspect of working together with females and males as well.
Okay, so we see there are lots of different aspects where we can approach public value in Eurovision, and I'm pretty sure that you all have questions to our panelists. So feel free to ask your questions. I see the lady over there has already risen her hand.
Just a second. Okay.
The lady over there.
Valeria Karablova, Charles University. Thank you so much for this amazing, really illuminating presentation. I agree 1000% with everything what you have mentioned, but just for the sake of keeping the spirit of academic conference, I will try to be critical, but not because I disagree, but because we have some common concerns. And the point is that I'm afraid that it's not only that we assume certain things that are not there, but also we're being quite inertial, relying on some institutional designs that might no longer work. And for me, should we reframe the debate? It's not about how we should practice public value better and how to find funding for that, but rather who defines what public value is in the situation where the consensus is fragmenting. Because we do have large swaths of population who say that actually diversity, inclusion, and everything is an elitarian privilege. It's a moral posture for people who can afford it. But we have different concerns. So this is not what you call a public good, is a group interest. And this is not our interest. And this is what's driving politics today. So I do believe that we have strong stakes here, and we can use Eurovision as a case in point, how to make them feel heard, and how to reconnect and rebuild the public value together. And my question to you is, what is the role of public broadcasters and how we can approach that? Just for the context, I come from Ukraine, we learned it a hard way. Yes, so in 2014 we have 2 strong public broadcasters that contributed to the social cohesion and to all societal resistance to Russian aggression and all of that, but I have lived in many places where I see increasing fragmentation over the last 10 years, including Austria. Thank you.
That's definitely a good one, and I have to deal with that because I'm working into quality control, so I have to have definitions in order to get some criteria I can actually measure when talking about public value. And I could tell you about 2 hours now, which I don't, but I appreciate you touched a point that is very relevant. But in this context, I think it's not my problem to define, but to debate. I do agree that we all have different approaches when it comes to the common good. But democracy is the solution. And democracy means to include all people and all opinions. So therefore, I'm very happy after 15 years of creating and developing and working on public value that we have a public debate about it. And of course, I think my personal definition of public value is far better than the guy who comes from the commercial TV, misusing it. The public value is now a term almost everybody's using, and everybody says, but I have public value as well. And I said, okay, well, that's okay for me. I don't insist on my personal definition. Just show your contribution. So I think we can resolve that kind of issue if we contribute to what we consider as public value. And then you know what starts? The debate. But that's democracy. That I do not agree to your opinion. So we have to find a way, hopefully, in a peaceful way, to work it out. Yeah. But I think after a while, where neoliberalism only worked, on individual revenues, where the big companies only work to get all the money at the moment where the rich are taking everything for their own. I think it's a good decision to focus on what we consider to be common good. And yes, we have to find out what it is. Yeah, in times when I started my career, as I said before, there was no LGBT. Yeah, it did not exist. So I had to learn it personally. I had to change myself to perceive another layer of reality, which is common good nowadays. So let's find out and focus and insist that we have to debate the common good, citizenship and democracy. So therefore, this could be the way forward, and not just insisting who exactly would define it. Yeah, I have my definition, and I've been amongst a very small group of people who found the definition of the core values of the European Broadcasting Union. Wow, I found the definition in a very small group. Well, you know what? It's not that important, because in the community of public service media, we have consensus. Yeah, and the English speak about universalism. Yeah, we don't have even a word for that in German language. So therefore, we have to work it out and find ways of exploring and creating public value. That's the way forward. So I'm very practical on that.
So another question.
Thank you very much. Can I ask the panel about the public value of a national final, a national selection for the Eurovision Song Contest? Austria won Eurovision last year, but that was an internally selected act. There's an argument that sometimes picking internally, you pick acts that would never dare to enter a national selection process. Lithuania have one of Europe's longest national selection processes. 40 different acts, I believe, were there this year, but some of those acts didn't even get 100 televotes in their semi-final. Is there a public value to having so much breadth when you can't have the quality of that? But then, if you narrow it down, maybe you don't get enough diversity in there. I speak quite often about seeing how Finland's selection process has been really successful in recent years, but they've really narrowed down. They limit the number of songs they have so they can have a quality stage show, so they can have Eurovision-ready numbers in February, and they're currently famous for the Eurovision Song Contest. But then their national final, because it's so narrow, maybe it's not diverse enough for representation and the public value of that. So, last year it was Sweden that had Kai, despite being from Finland, because it was space, and they were never asked to be part of Finland's selection process, and they missed their own national diversity. I think the people on the panel here, you've got such different backgrounds, and where should that balance be, that quantity and diversity over a quality and more specialised approach? What is the best public value for the nation and artists?
Pamela?
That is such a great question. I ask that myself all the time, also while being in the process and preparing for the show. I ask that myself. I think what many people don't know, there is a songwriting camp every year since I think 2017 or 18, broadcasted by Mika, Austromechana, and many other, I'd say, foundations of Austria who help and support Austria's musicians and artists. I was part of this songwriting camp. Have I not been part of this songwriting camp, I would have never gotten to the idea of writing a song for Eurovision. It was only because of this songwriting camp that I even dared to dream or think that I could have a chance with my musical approach. So it starts even before the whole, I need to submit a song and stuff like that. And when I was in this songwriting camp, I talked to all these great artists. It was around 25 artists writing in all these studios. It was incredible, such an incredible atmosphere. And then I thought to myself, oh, what a privileged position, and how strange that there is only a certain type of art. Because I remember I sat in the park, there's a beautiful park at the studio, and I sat down and I looked around and I was like, oh, well, I'll be damned. we're all pretty much the same kind of artists with the same, oh, okay. And up we go to the office and talk to the head about this. So I sat down with him and I asked him this because I'm a very nosy person, as you might realize now, and so I'm very curious about things and I want answers. And he was like, you know, the thing is, there are such great bands who wanted to participate this year. And I said, oh, okay, could you maybe give me an example? And when I tell you there were such cool bands and such cool solo artists who wanted to participate, but they withdrew and said, no, I do not want it. In the last moments of participating, we had the same thing with Tamara Flores, who was already picked, but then withdraw, where, yeah, that's a different topic. But things like these happened in the background with us artists being in contact and having this big WhatsApp groups and stuff like that all the time towards the contest. And for me, not that I could narrow it down with one sentence or even within a few minutes of talking about it, but I think it's intimidating. It really is. And I think we don't talk about this enough when it comes to art and being an artist. You said it as an example, just alone this moment of being intimate with the technique guys backstage, that is already a very intimate moment that you have to prepare yourself for. It is. And then you post something and it goes out there and then people butcher you just for being part of this event. I never had so many hate comments in my DMs. I never had such hateful speech against me as a person. And I always thought to myself, but wait, I'm making art, I'm making music. And then I had to sit down and realize, yeah, but it's political because it always has been and it will always be. But with that comes the fear and it just narrowing it down right now, it's intimidating, point blank. It is intimidating. And talking to all these artists at the songwriting camp, when we sat down at the last day of the camp, we all admitted to it and also admitted that it's hurtful to admit it. You know what I'm saying? It is this point of pour me, pour my. Of course, there's an attitude where you have to be careful because there's a very fine line where you just sit there and like, I'm an artist and I suffer through my art and I have to portray it now in a song. And then on the other hand, there's this very, very truthful pain that comes with wanting to be part of the Eurovision and wanting to portray your music on this very great stage and with very great technique and everything, but being intimidated by it all. So I hope that answers it maybe a little bit. So.
Thank you very much, Bamlak, for this very nice statement. And there would be lots of other questions I know, Ramonas, you would love to say.
No, just a quick one, since Lithuania was mentioned, in this question. So, it's a very, to cut a long story short, very philosophical question. What is public value? Is public value getting, an artist of a high caliber on the local pop scene? Like in Lithuania, we have artists who are playing arenas, stadiums, we have lots of experience. And of course, there is, quite a few people would like them to go to Eurovision. But as I mentioned, I guess the only way, and in many countries it's the same, if you want to get there, like a really big pop star, I guess we are not going to go, in many cases, we are not going to go to selections and being compared to other people and being judged and, getting points and risk not winning this because they see it as a threat to their careers and their public image. Like Estonia is an example, you know what happened. Noep is probably like the biggest modern pop artist in Estonia, and he lost the national selection. And sadly, Estonia didn't go through last night, but that's another story. So what is public value? Getting like best, the most popular artist in the country to represent the country in Eurovision, hoping this will automatically bring a great result, which is in many cases, it's not necessarily what's going to happen. And as I said in Lithuania, it's out of question for a foreseeable future to do it internally because people would just go, we need to have a say, this is public broadcast, this is our money basically, it's taxpayers' money, we're sending an artist, we need to have a say who goes. So, so internal selection, as I said, out of question. Now, in terms of narrowing the selection to less acts, to 7 or 8 acts, like in some countries, this year we had 6 weeks. There was a time when we had 14 weeks of selection, people singing covers. So there was a period like that as well in Lithuanian Eurovision history. So I would say 6 shows is kind of like, quite optimal. In terms of what you are mentioning about the quality of acts, but some acts you are implying are not up to par, you know, well, you know, I would, it's a debate, but I might just say that you would risk that some songs could fall through the cracks, you know, in the floor and wouldn't get into this, like, you know, top 8 or what have you, which, you know, we could have like for one final show. If somebody told me, listening to the demo of Catharsis, who took part in Eurovision, like, you know, when I first heard the demo, that this is going to do really well and this is going to represent the country in Eurovision, I mean, I wouldn't bet my money on that. You know, we have quite a few cases where very little known acts come over and they just bloom on this Eurovision selection stage. Like, you know, and that is another question, and that implies other, you know, things like, for example, with well-known popular acts maybe are getting quite skeptical about taking part in the selection because Sylvester Belt, you know, I assume you are Eurovision people, you know the history of participation of countries. So, you know, a couple of years back, so, you know, many people thought it's the Roop, they have it in the bag, because, you know, they did so well a couple of years back, and now they're coming back, and so, of course. And then Sylvester Belt comes, you know, a guy who nobody had a clue about, I mean, like, and he just wins this. So, you know, what I'm trying to say, in some cases, even the pre-selection process for the one final that would be televised, there's every chance that some of those songs wouldn't have even made the shortlist. So, you know, I'm kind of quite enthusiastic about the fact that there are many songs, many singers who are probably, you know, well, maybe they are not that well prepared for the Eurovision stage, but they get to showcase their art, their music, and we have quite a few stories where those artists, you know, get the audience and get the followers, and, you know, and kickstart their career. So, I think showcasing up-and-coming artists is also a public value thing, and public broadcaster does that. Whether it's the context of Eurovision, you know, it's debatable, but, you know, I'm quite happy that we have a long selection, at least because I get to be on telly 6 nights, you know, just being a part of a jury, so that's fun as well, commenting on things. No, I'm joking, but yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Thank you so much, Ramunas. I think we could discuss the topic of public value in Eurovision for hours and hours. So thank you very much, Klaus, Ramunas, Bamlak, and Volker, for being with us here this morning. And there's another aspect of public value, that is the happiness that is created by watching Eurovision.
That's
and
key.
For that we will see online in the coffee break a presentation of Marie-Therese Stedry, and we meet each other in 10 minutes for the third round table, United by Music ? Thank you.
Sorry if I was rambling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my speech, Happy Eurovision, How the Eurovision Song Contest Contributes to Psychological Well-Being. My name is Marie-Therese Stedry, and I am going to show you at first a quick overview on what I want to talk to you about in the next few minutes. So at first, I'd like to say some words about me and my work. Then I'm going to introduce the Schulfach Glück, so the school subject happiness, to you. After that, I have the Happiness Cross framework, which I want to show to you because it's a quite interesting framework to apply on the Eurovision Song Contest. So this will be the next part of my little speech. And after that, I'm going to make a little conclusion and give you some future perspectives. So let's dive in. Some words about me. As I already said, my name is Marie-Therese Stedry. I'm a media educator, but I'm also a resilience coach for children and adolescents. It's a quite difficult word in English, resilience. Resilience coach for children and adolescents. I'm also a certified parent course facilitator in the program Strong Parents, Strong Children, and I am a trainer for the program which I brought with me today, the School Subject Happiness Program. But I think the most important information on this slide is that I'm a passionate Eurovision Song Contest fan. So let me tell you something about Schulfach Glück. Let me introduce the school subject happiness to you. What is this about? Schulfach Glück is an innovative educational concept aimed at promoting life skills, personal development, and the psychological well-being of students. And it was introduced in 2027 by Ernst Fritz Schubert in Heidelberg, and it's based on the principles of positive psychology. The goal of Schulfachglück is to reduce stress and empower students to lead self-determined lives through self-reflection, a strength-based approach, and the development of social competencies. So it's a big program. It's a real interesting qualification, which I did in the last 2 years. And concerning the question on how it is implemented, we can say that Schulfachglück, so the school subject happiness, is especially implemented in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And it's not yet a fixed school subject in every school, in every plan of students, but it's more a kind of elective subject within, or it's implemented within project-based learning formats. For example, project days or something like this. I hope this will change in the future, because the school subject happiness should be a fixed part of children's and adolescents' school, daily school experience, but it's not yet there. It's more a kind of project-based learning format. But nevertheless, it's a real great program with a big variety of different methods and different goals and core elements, which I don't want to explain to you in detail in this speech, because this would take too long, but maybe I can give you some more insights in the future. We will see. So for now, we are going to have a look at one special framework from the school subject happiness, and this special framework is called the Happiness Cross. The Happiness Cross framework is a kind of system with 2 axes and 4 areas. And now we are going to have a closer look on this. So the first line, the first thing which is important in the Happiness Cross framework, is the question of how short or how long does it last, the feeling happy. So it's about duration. And it's also about intensity. How intense is the happiness feeling which I am talking about? And you can differentiate every part of this happiness cross into 2 different forms. So duration can be divided or differentiated in short term and long term. And intensity can be differentiated in low intensity and high intensity. And with that, you are getting 4 areas, which are 4 different ways of how you can experience happiness, how you can foster well-being, if you want to say it like this. And to get closer to the different areas, there are 4 questions which are important to make people think about in this method. So we start with the first area, which is concerned the short-term duration and the low intensity. There is the question, what are small things in your everyday life that bring you quick and easily accessible moments of happiness? For example, a cup of coffee or a walk in the forest, for example. The second area is about short-term duration and high intensity. So what are things in your life that give you a strong boost of happiness in the moment you experience them? For example, riding a roller coaster or something like this. The third area is about long-term duration and low intensity. The leading question there is, what are things in your life that you would probably only realize make you happy if they were no longer there? And the last area, which is about long-term duration and high intensity, is led by the question, what are things in your life that create a strong sense of happiness over a longer period of time? And if you want to find headlines for the different areas, you can say that the yellow area with short-term duration and low intensity, these things can be called moments. There are moments of happiness, the cup of coffee or the walk in the forest. The pink area, so short-term duration and high intensity, the answers in this area might or are usually connected to experiences, riding a roller coaster, attending a concert, for example. These are experiences. Interesting is the blue area with a long-term duration and a low intensity, because there it's often about structures. So, for example, being healthy or owning your own car and being able to drive to every place you want to at any time you want to. These can be answers in the blue area, and it's usually about structures and material things you have in your life, which you might think they are normal, but if you don't have them anymore because you get sick or your car gets broken, then you realize, okay, these are actually things that make me happy, but I just don't realize it when they are there. So these are structures. And the green area, long-term duration and high intensity, there are many things which are connected to relationships and personal development. Taking this, we are heading forward to the question of how we can apply the happiness cross to the Eurovision Song Contest. And this is a very interesting question, which I thought about in preparation for this speech. And I've been formulating 4 questions to lead my thoughts in order to find some personal examples which we can talk about in this speech, so that we have a kind of baseline. From there we can go further. So let's start with the first question, short-term duration and low intensity. What are small things around the Eurovision Song Contest that give you a quick and easily accessible moment of happiness? I'm going to share my personal examples in a few slides, but first I want to show all 4 questions to you. The pink area, short-term and high intensity, is the question, what ESC-related experiences give you a strong, immediate boost of happiness? The blue area, long-term duration and low intensity, is about what ESC-related things would you probably only realize make you happy if they were no longer part of your life? And the green area, long-term duration and high intensity, is about what ESC-related things create a strong sense of happiness over a longer period of time. And now I'm going to show you some of my personal examples for the moments. So it's about the question, what are small things around the Eurovision Song Contest that give you a quick and easily accessible moments of happiness? Short-term and low intensity. And thinking about this question, I came up with the following answers. For me, this can be listening or watching your favorite ESC entry, listening to a new Eurovision-related podcast episode, watching a new reaction video on YouTube, or looking funny Eurovision memes at social media, but also turning up an ESC song in the car and singing along. Maybe also in my own made-up version of the lyrics, because they're not English or German. And also buying ESC merchandise is for me a small thing around the Eurovision Song Contest that gives me a quick and easily accessible moment of happiness. But there could be many more answers. These are just some examples of my personal perspective. So let's go ahead to the next area where it is about experiences. So what ESC-related experiences give you a strong, immediate boost of happiness? Short-term, high intensity. And I came up with the answers. When your favorite song also gets an amazing staging and you see it for the first time. Or being in the arena and experiencing a live ESC show. Watching the ESC at a public viewing with other fans is also always an experience for me with a strong and immediate boost of happiness. But also having an ESC watch party with close friends at home could be a kind of experience if they are the right people for this context. And it can also be special moments at the Euro Club. For example, if everyone sings along to a song you can also sing along to, or dancing an iconic routine as a group, which is also very, very cool to experience. If your own country gets 12 points, that's also a big experience, especially for me as a German. It's very great, and luckily I had the opportunity to experience this in the last year at Basel, when Arbor and Tünner got 12 points at the jury votes, and it was great at the public viewing, celebrating your own country with getting 12 points. But also if your favorite entry gets 12 points, this might be a possible way to give you a strong immediate boost of happiness. Or if you have a nerdy ESC conversation with a like-minded people, or a like-minded guy or friend or something like this. And some other example which I just experienced some days ago, if you're snagging last-minute tickets for the live show, which I managed to do, and that gave me a very strong and a very immediate boost of happiness, even if it was quite expensive. Okay. Let's move on to the blue area, which is connected to the thing about structures. So what ESC-related things would you probably only realize make you happy if they were no longer part of your life? Long-term and low intensity. And there were quite interesting answers, I think, because the first thing that came to my mind was when this ESC takes place at all and isn't cancelled, for example, due to a pandemic. We all remember 2020, and it wasn't really great. Or having access to the technology, to being able to follow the ESC at all, to watch it via TV or online streaming or other ways. And also the fact that all countries participate in the ESC and there are no boycotts or disqualifications in the best case. Yes, we already experienced it in the current season, and it's not a really good feeling if there are boycotts or if there are disqualifications, like we saw it in the last years. Also, if the ESC can be celebrated as a peaceful music event and you can feel safe at ESC events, so you don't have to be afraid of terror or something like this. So if it's just a peaceful, friendly